Welcome to another episode of our personal empowerment audio series, Finding Yourself in Paradise. Hi, I'm Michael Benner.
And I'm Steve Snyder, and our program today is about quality time. The quality time you spend with yourself, with your significant other, and with those members of your family and those friends that you care about the most.
It may be a sad commentary to say you're going to have to schedule yourself and your family into your day runner, into your calendar, your daily schedule. But the fact is that most of us have such an overstimulated life. We've put so many demands upon ourselves, or allowed others to put demands and expectations upon us, that often we suffer the frustration of trying to live a life on the remnants of time that are left after we've given our lives away trying to please other people. Now, some of that we got to do. Yeah, I mean, we got to work. We need an income, I understand. But couldn't we have a little left over? And if there doesn't seem to be any left over, then maybe we're going to have to schedule it.
Yeah, I don't think we can wait for the leftovers. I think we have to take it off the top. In fact, we have to schedule ourselves first. And the fascinating thing about scheduling quality time for yourself is it doesn't really have to be a whole lot. I mean, it's great if you can schedule a significant amount of time, an hour or two, to be just working on the thing that you love to do the most. But, even 2 minutes makes all the difference in the world. Just scheduling 2 minutes of quality time with yourself. Now, what's quality time with yourself? Well, really, it's anything that isn't wasted time. Anything that's spent or invested in your growth, your success, your fulfillment, anything that feels good, that gets those endorphins flowing, anything that motivates you, excites you, anytime you're stimulating your memory, remembering wonderful things. There's so many applications, but the bottom line here is what's not quality time is continual worry, regret, remorse, guilt. What's not quality time is thinking of bad things about other people, judging people in a negative way. What's not quality time is running those endless loops of television commercials or stupid slogans through your mind. What's not quality time is when your mind's just off by itself and you're not doing any intentional, or we call it purposeful, thinking.
Yes, exactly. I think the first thing that comes up for me when I think about quality time is hobbies, leisure time activities, spare time stuff, avocations, but even more like retirement, or what would I do if I had $1 gajillion in the bank and had already traveled the world and bought mansions and done all the silly extravagant things, and I don't really have to work. What would I spend my time doing? And I think it would be different for each of us, but what if I could do a little of that now? Why not? Whatever it would be. A lot of people in that situation say, well, I would help other people. I'd spend some of my quality time being of service and just helping out, doing something I love to do. Why choose something you hate to be charitable? Something you love to do. But why not do that now? Why wait? Why write it off as, well, I'd have to win the lottery for that to ever happen?
Well, simply because people don't consider themselves a high enough priority to schedule first. And so if you wait for what's left, ultimately whatever you do fills the amount of time you have, So there's nothing left. There's never anything left.
You think it's a matter of self-esteem or deservingness?
I think to some extent it is. To some extent people think other people's needs are more important than their own. And to some extent it's just habit. It's just habitual. People don't schedule their own name into their calendar, so they schedule everybody else's name until there's no room left. So it's a combination of they don't think of their needs important enough. Their needs are really like after everybody else's needs, many people think. If there's any time left for me. But also, it just doesn't even occur to them. Habitually, they're just addicted to this whole scheduling everybody else in instead of themselves.
Well, I think you make some good points, and it's that last point that sort of leads to where I was coming from in asking you. I think the first thing that pops up for me is just that it doesn't occur to us to put ourselves into our schedule, our daily routine, because we've accepted our role as victims or effects of life, and are limited to reacting without feeling like we have choices in so many areas that well, I wouldn't have control over this. I'm just way too busy. I think there's also some self-importance in that. Like people that drive way too fast on the way to work and then way too fast on the way home. Um, it's like they seem like they're in a hurry to get someplace, but I think they're really running away from someplace. And there's this sense of self-importance that, frankly, if you think about it, and I don't want this to be taken the wrong way, but I think it merits being mentioned. The truth is that while we're of significance to people who love us, the world will go on without us, right? If one of us were kidnapped by aliens tomorrow, unless you were some sort of real VIP, but even then, right, the world continues to turn. And I think most of us are a little afraid to look at how replaceable we really are in life. Maybe that's part of it too.
Yeah, it's fascinating because although we think of ourselves so often as being like insignificant or replaceable, we're actually completely irreplaceable and totally the most significant thing in the universe. Because whereas the world will keep turning after we go, our world won't, So from our perspective, what's really important is to take care of ourselves first. So that means scheduling or experiencing habitually quality time. Once you get the habit of taking a couple minutes here, a few minutes there, a half hour there, an hour there, you don't even have to get it into your schedule anymore. Once it's autopilot. But the problem is your autopilot's not set on doing this yet. So the schedule is the method of taking it and putting it into a habitual pattern. So ultimately you won't even need to write it in your schedule anymore.
Well, when I talk about self-importance, this series is finding yourself in paradise. So which self am I talking about? The self-importance of, accepting that, as I say, the world's going to do just fine without you, frankly. That's the self that we are not, but that we often struggle so hard to be. The personality, the persona, the ego, the separative being, the one that's ruled by fear and that experiences a sense of otherness. But the higher self doesn't have a sense of importance in that it doesn't, I don't think, categorize. It sees wholeness and sees that higher self, itself, as part of something much bigger that is integral and essential, but not really separate the way most of us think of ourselves as being separate. So what self are we scheduling this quality time for?
We're not scheduling quality time with the part of us that's stuck in a thought process or stuck in our feelings or stuck in our body image. We're scheduling quality time with the self that is aware of the fact that we think, aware of our fact that we feel, aware of the fact that we have a body but are not a body. So we're scheduling time, quality time, to spend with the part of ourselves that feels no fear except for clear and present real life-threatening danger. And it's not really afraid of that because it knows the autopilot will kick in and fight or flight will take over. So really, there is no fear that the higher self experiences. So if the voice you're listening to in your mind is nervous or anxious or frightened or apprehensive or worried or any of those kinds of things, that's not the quality time we're talking about. Quality time is listening to the part of you that feels safe, that feels powerful, that talks about the best of you and finds new bests of you every time it looks.
Yeah, remember, as we know the truth of who we are, as we rise from our sense of self as separated, all right, as opposed to, and as often alienated and lonely, to a higher sense of self, more harmonious and more unitive, importance falls away. It becomes irrelevant. It's not that you lose yourself so much as you lose your sense of things opposing you or being outside and separated from you. It's the other that we lose as we evolve and unfold to this more harmonious sense of self. That's who needs the quality time. That's who we schedule the quality time for, even if you have to put it in the book. But remember those moments, as Steve was explaining, in every day. Take the time And in fact, challenge yourself. Anytime you get a picture or a voice in your head that says, too busy, don't have time, call yourself on it and say, well, I have time to take a breath and reflect on whether that's a true statement or not.
Yeah, there's always that much time. That's really an important concept. There's a really old phrase that says a stitch in time saves nine. That is, instead of like trying to rush through things fast, taking your time and doing it right once kind of thing. So sometimes there is that time to take a breath before you jump in, to take that extra moment. That's quality time with yourself. Quality time with yourself is any time you listen to that higher self, that higher voice. And it can be listening to how wonderful you feel about the way your world is. I mean, I do this wonderful exercise where I run through my five senses, and what do I love looking at, and what do I love smelling and tasting and hearing. Or you could spend some time before you're going to spend quality time with your spouse. For example, here's one of my favorites. Is you close your eyes and you take a couple of minutes spending quality time with yourself, remembering the finest qualities about your spouse, the most wonderful moments with your spouse, the greatest aspects of your spouse, and then shift and go spend some scheduled quality time with your spouse.
And so that's the second part of creating quality time in your life, is scheduling time for yourself and for your significant other, for your spouse, for your partner, for your best friend. It's important to have the social interaction. And again, to say, I'm trying to find the time to live a life because I'm too busy over here trying to earn enough money to live a life. It's like the feeling of the rat race is described in current events literature back to the 1950s, like barely out of World War II. And people are already complaining about this meaningless treadmill existence of earn and spend and produce and consume. And forgive young people the mistake, but by the time we get into our 30s, I think most people know that, well, this hamster cage isn't really working, this rat race, this treadmill thing, but gosh, I like stuff, and it's way ahead of whatever is second best. I mean, I don't know what else I'm supposed to do. I thought this was life. We have been trained like these rats, really, to think of ourselves as consumers first, and we're not. We're living beings first. And you want to be a consumer? Fine. Consume as much or as little as you would like. You want to produce money and other means of generating the things that you want to acquire? We have to be reasonable. It's always a matter of balance, right? We do have to be in the world, but not of it. And that means a balance. That means a blend of, why am I doing this if I don't have a life to live? Try scheduling it for yourself, as we've discussed, and then get with your partner and schedule some time, quality time, just for the two of you to live your life.
You know, I was having this conversation with my wife just the other day, and we were talking about, she was saying she wanted some more connection. She wanted to feel closer and deeper. And so I immediately went off to like, well, what do I need to say to her to make that happen? Like, what conversations, what topics of conversations should I elicit, or should I get us started on that's going to create that happening? And then it occurred to me that my wife's mind doesn't work the same way my mind does. And my first thought is, what words do I say? But then I put myself in her place, and it's really, she didn't ask me about words. She said, I want to feel more connected. So what I did was I thought, okay, and I just walked up to her once and put a song on the iPod and said, would you like this dance? And we spent 2 minutes, an old Van Morrison song, just looking in each other's eyes and dancing. And I said, is that the kind of connection you're looking for? She goes, yeah. So it's like, it doesn't have to be words necessarily.
And 2 minutes was enough?
Oh, well, maybe it was
short Van Morrison.
Maybe it was 3.5, but I'll tell you, I had her in 2, for sure. I had her in the first 2.
That speaks to that Styles of Loving book.
Yeah.
You know it better than I.
The 5 Love Languages, Gary Chapman, wonderful book.
Gary Chapman, I've had several people tell me about how they benefited from that book. And I've learned quite a bit from you telling me about it. I haven't read it. But Say it again. Gary Chapman?
Gary Chapman, The Five Love Languages. He also has Five Love Languages for Children. He has several different versions of it. It's really, really great stuff. And the Five Love Languages are words, words of love, words of appreciation, acts of service, doing things for people they didn't ask you to do, gifts, usually unsolicited, not like birthday present, but gifts for no reason kind of gifts, quality time, which, of course, is our topic today, and then touch. And I find that one of the things my wife needs to feel connected is the touch. That she was laying in bed and I just walked in and started rubbing her leg, and rubbing her feet. That's something I know you do with your wife, is rubbing her feet. That kind of connection is a real quality time. I'm sure Doreen would say that that's some of the finest quality time you two spend is rubbing her feet.
Yeah, she says it makes her feel loved.
Yeah.
And it surprises me, not any longer, but when she first began to explain that to me, I thought it was just something she was saying, and then it finally sunk in. No, she really feels loved when I rub her feet. Well, okay, so I'm scoring big points here, right? But I would never, somebody rubbed my feet, I'd enjoy it, but it wouldn't make me feel loved.
Well, when Teresa left her briefcase at the bottom of the stairs and I picked it up and put it up in her room for her, it made her feel loved. But if she moved my briefcase, I wondered what the heck she was doing. Leave my briefcase alone.
Yeah.
I put it there for a reason. So, yeah, we all have our different ways of feeling love. If she says to me, I love you, that really makes, and I'm smart and I'm wonderful, that really works for me. But if I say those things to her, it doesn't work so well because she thinks talk is cheap. She's had a lot of people who said things that weren't like the truth to her in her life, so she's much more wary of that. The bottom line is quality time with the person, with the spouse or the significant other, it means something that it doesn't have to be words necessarily. It doesn't have to be conversation. It can be, but sometimes it could be just touch, or sometimes it could just be the idea of sharing a moment together. It's just you and I are together in this thing. It's a quality time with someone else is just sharing that moment of happiness. This idea of when you're happy, being able to say this to the person next to you, look at that, or isn't this great, or it's like nudging the person next to you at the movies. There's something about quality time could just be sharing a sunset, sharing a full moon together. It doesn't have to be words. It can be. But it doesn't have to be long. It can be. But the most important thing is the absence of it is glaring in a relationship. The absence of any of those moments, it doesn't have to be long times, but the absence of those times, it just cries out in a relationship.
Yeah, you've got to have some quality communication about how to spend the quality time. I remember as a young man when I was single, dating this woman for quite some time, and thought I knew her pretty well, and we went on a kind of a vacation. It was a little houseboat thing, actually. Rented a houseboat just ourselves for a few days. It was in the spring, the rates were cheap, but the weather was beautiful and warm. I had one idea of what a houseboat vacation would be like with just two people on the whole houseboat. She had a very different idea of what it would be like. And the two did not meet until each of us expressed our disappointment in the other one's failure to do what each of us expected the other one to do on this vacation. We had no communication at all, right? And by the time we figured it out, the vacation was half over, so to speak. And then we just took turns trying to meet each other's needs. Well, what would you like to do? Well, then as we get to know each other better, of course, you get better at doing that. But thinking about the styles of love and what is quality time for you? Well, let's do some of that. Now, if your quality time is the same thing, great, but it might be different. Like remembering a couple I counseled, their idea of vacation, this came up a couple of times, was she liked to lounge, to lay on the beach, to lay in the sun, to meditate, to reflect, to really relax and unwind. And the guy in the relationship, his idea of a vacation was rent a jet ski, go, 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 right? Get a map of the stars homes and drive around and get up at 6:30 in the morning and stay up till late at night and rush. The kind of vacation where you're exhausted when you get home. And it was very difficult for these two. It was like, we can't even get along on vacation, right? Well, they just weren't reading each other, and they weren't communicating. They're accepting that, it's okay for him to want to go. They could do a little of that, and it's okay for her to want to lay on the beach and maybe read a book or do something that looks a little more leisurely. And let's do some of that, right? But we got to communicate when we actually schedule this time. If you think you don't need to write it down, then ask yourself, why is it not happening? And if it's happening, fine. But most of us need more quality time in our lives and more quality time with our spouses.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean necessarily doing what you've been doing. It might mean having a conversation about new ways to do things. It might be that, what you've been doing might just be fine, but in a relationship that evolves and grows and awakens, that there's new things to do, to talk about, to experience together. So explore the possibilities of how do we get closer, how do we get deeper, how do we share this thing together, and then once we have this going on in our individual lives and in our lives together, then how do we bring the family into it? The family meaning our children and our extended family, our closest friends, our relatives. One of the things we've been talking about lately is doing it in a learning process, the program we put together, the Family Learning Hour.
And what a great way to accomplish at least part of this third area of concern, which is quality time for the family. When you think about it, what more basic institution is there? Now, there are families where two people are married or partners or living together and there's no parents around, there's no kids around. Those are still families. And so I'm not just talking about those family units that have a lot of kids when I talk about the family is an institution and that nothing is more fundamental in the society.
Sort of what came out of clans, like it used to be our group that lived in the cave, or the small little social network, including cousins and nephews and uncles and aunts. We all have. My family now includes my mom's caretakers, depending on your life situation, but your family is who you're hanging out with, not just your blood relatives.
There's a great word that Hawaiians have for this called ohana.
Yes.
And your ohana is not even limited to, well, first of all, it's not just the nuclear family that exists in the American
all the aunties and uncles, for sure.
It's every cousin you can drag in, right, as part of your ohana. But then even people who endear themselves to you, who become family. Well, he's like a brother to me. That's part of your ohana. And then the line gets sort of blurry where it blends into a whole sense of community.
Neighborhood, community, yeah.
Yeah. And then the lines sort of blur into aloha, which is nothing is separate, nothing is outside of me, nothing is other than. It's a beautiful, fundamentally mystical and ancient concept of the harmony, if not the unity of all things. Well, family is an institution. It doesn't eclipse the importance of the individual in knowing self and understanding self and then developing, as we often talk about, your sense of self, finding that better nature and honoring that longing to have and do and be more, and not just for the self, but as you evolve and unfold, recognizing you can't separate that from your philanthropy and charitable service and just helping out to other people. But I'm arguing that it's very easy. The evidence I suggest is in front of you. This is a slippery slope. It's just too easy to get into a pattern where your priorities are inverted. I mean, it may be well-intentioned stuff. You're working hard to make money. Good. To put your kids through college. Great. Okay. You're working hard to take the kids here and take them there and get them to this lesson and that class and so on. And then there's the church activities or the community, and you want to be involved in the service organization and the fraternity groups. And we're just trying to do too much, and what suffers is often what's most important, and that's what Steve and I are talking about today, creating quality time in your schedule. And you've always got a minute or two, but how about blocks of 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, maybe even a day or two? Years ago, my wife and I had a problem knowing, is it the weekend or is it during the week, or how are we going to create some quality time in our lives? And what we decided to do was block out Saturday and Sunday. We just drew the line and said, at the very least, if one of us wants to do something on the weekend that doesn't involve the other one, that we talk about it and never assume that this is our valued time. That Monday through Friday, it's work or it's other commitments and activities, but we drew lines from Friday night to Sunday night and said, this is ours. This is a life, right? And there have to be some exceptions sometimes, but that's what I'm talking about. For yourself, to be alone, to putz around, to pursue your avocations and hobbies. For you and your significant other, this is a marriage. The two of you are merging and longing to know more about life through each other. And nothing promotes the unfoldment of the self we find in paradise like this kind of primary, romantic, loving relationship. And then to bring the kids in, okay, and have quality time. Even if you got to put it down in the book, quality time for the whole family to be together.
And even 20 minutes once a week as a family meeting, a family, come to tell us what's been going on with you this week meeting, at the very least, can make a huge difference in the family. You make a continuous connection. And if it's not only regular but scheduled, then everybody knows to be there, and everybody knows that if there's something they need to say, this is coming next Tuesday or whatever it is. My wife and I have a thing. We do it every Sunday, basically, when I'm in town, a thing we call chair time. We have times when we don't do it, but generally speaking, a structured time when we sit down and we talk about our relationship and how we do in terms of finances and in-laws and how we do in terms of plans and all kinds of things. And it's a structured time. And it really helps us to stay grounded and stay balanced. So quality time with myself is thinking about, from my higher self, what works for me. Quality time with my spouse involves a whole lot of thinking about her and what her needs are, and her doing the same for me. So a lot of times it's not talking, which is what I need. A lot of times it's touching and letting her feel, And then in terms of bringing the family together and creating a meaningful experience where you get to grow deeper together. It doesn't have to be long, but it does have to be. It has to be regular. It has to be something you all come to expect and lean on and grow into, and it becomes a real important part of the process. My family meets every Friday night. We have a Friday night ritual gathering at my mom's house, which is just a mile down the road. I love having my mom close, but I don't want her that close. A mile's great. And we all get together on Friday evening, and we have a social family gathering. We all expect it. We all look forward to it, and it feels really nice.
And Steve, before we do our audio journey for this episode, I want to go to the Family Learning Hour. You brought it up a few minutes ago, and I don't want to miss this opportunity to talk about it again. We did 5 weeks in a row of this not long ago, and we've got this sweet little package here of 5 different programs, an introduction, and then 4 how-to-learn lessons for students of all ages, really. Anybody who loves to learn and sees learning is a lifestyle,
wants to learn to love to learn.
There you go. Even learning to create interest where there isn't any.
Absolutely, that's a big part of the program.
Touch on that as well. Has to check out this Family Learning Hour mini-series that we did here.
Yeah, this is a great opportunity to start a habit, to schedule time for the family. It's about a 40-minute program that Michael and I have a compelling conversation about accelerated reading and study and memory and test taking, and then you can sit down with your kids and talk about what you were all just listening to. And even 10, 20 minutes together talking about these ideas will get you to know each other better, to understand each other better, and to bring the family closer. And again, it's something that really is such a powerful, powerful result for such a small time investment. Literally 10 or 20 minutes creates such an amazing bonding experience, especially when it becomes a ritual. There's so much power in ritual and in habit in our lives. And, it's like people, every Sunday they go to church. It becomes such an important part of their lives. Well, if every Thursday night they gather together in the Family Learning Hour, it can become just as an important part of their life.
So go to focusedpassion.com, use your email, that's your username and your password, to go on inside. Your browser probably remembers it for you by now. And you'll see a button that you can use to access all the programs that you haven't yet acquired in your player list. And look for the Family Learning Hour in 5 parts. There's an intro, and then I think 1 is reading, 2 is study, 3 is memory, 4 is review. So they're 1, 2, 3, 4, but remember the intro. There's really 5 programs that you can get. And they're about 40 minutes long. So like Steve was saying, if you do a 20-minute discussion on the end, that's an hour. And that's really nice. Again, this is not homeschooling. This is not what to learn. These are the how to learn skills that you always wished that somebody had given you when you were in school. Well, it's never too late to benefit from learning more about how to learn. I'm really proud of them, Steve. I think they're really good.
I think so too. And if parents want to help their kids double or triple their reading speeds and really feel confident when they take their tests and just get better grades and master this experience called school, it's an easy way to do it. I mean, school has failed to teach kids how to learn. We know how to do it, and what we need is some help in delivering this to the kids. Well, that's what parents are for, as far as I'm concerned, helping their kids become better, faster, smarter, happier, all that stuff. We can help you parents help your children do that with the Family Learning Hour, and hopefully not just these 5 weeks, but set up a process week after week after week. You sit down with your family once a week or more often and have these quality time experiences with your family. So remember, quality time is any time that isn't wasted, that's intended, that's purposeful, that's scheduled to do something to benefit your personal or your and your spouse's or you and your family's growth, success, and fulfillment.
I'd like to talk a little about time dilation and changing time, changing our perception of how fast and how slow it really goes. And I think this is a fascinating concept. I remember the first time somebody told me about a microwave, and then a few months later I actually saw one. And of course, many, I'm dating myself here, but it wasn't that long ago, and wasn't it amazing? It would heat your coffee in 1 minute and do a hot dog in 3 minutes and bake a potato in 4 minutes, and we were all amazed for a few months. And then I found myself standing in front of the microwave going, come on, come on.
What's taking so long?
Yeah, so it is relative. Time is relative. And if you want time to go fast, get busy, right? Like if you're working in a situation and time's just dragging on, get busy. Or even notice that when you are busy, maybe you want time to slow down. It won't. It just keeps going faster and faster because time speeds up when you're highly stimulated, when you're really busy, when you're multitasking, when you're doing a lot of things.
You want time to really slow down, wait for a phone call. You just do one thing that there's nothing else to do, and time goes really, really slow.
That's right. In fact, you can even stop time altogether in a meditation exercise. Time will stand still for you, you see. The beauty of that, of course, is that the mind gets quiet and the emotional nature becomes calm, and there's a level of awareness that remains, something that stands above a still body, a quiet mind, and a calm heart. And it's a pinpoint of time. It's an eternal instant. Eternity is not this great big armload of time, this giant dump truck or super tanker full of time. Eternity is an instant that just never ends.
And although the clock keeps ticking out there is a hugely subjective aspect to time that you can control dramatically through this process of moving into the alpha or even deeper into the deep meditative theta brainwave states. Managing your time means doing effective things with your time. You can stretch it out. You can make more time. I mean, literally, that idea of doing things carefully so you don't have to repeat them over and over again makes more time. Finding a way to prepare your mind for the performance you're going to do so you do it more effectively, more efficiently, saves time. Thinking of new, more effective ways of doing things better than the way you used to do things could save time. You really could create more time in your life. And you know, the best book I ever read in my whole life on managing time is Getting Things Done by David Allen. And he has a new book out about managing your life and your work. But the basic primer is Getting Things Done. And he talks about how you really want to be organized. That is, you want to know where things are, and you want to know when something comes in, where does it go? You know, and once you have all that outside stuff organized by being scheduled, essentially by writing it all down or dealing with it effectively, then your mind is free to be creative. But when you've got all these things drawing on you, all these things that you haven't completed, all these tasks out there that a loose ends, so to speak, it takes away from your ability to feel free and to be creative.
Yeah, there's no question that when I slow down, relax and breathe, and put my attention gently on what I'm doing, I become much more efficient. I make fewer mistakes.
And save time.
I do.
Yeah.
I can't afford to be busy.
Exactly.
You see?
It takes way too much time to be busy.
I make too many mistakes. I miss opportunities, right? I get hung up on failure rather than learning from the appearance of failure. It's just like sports psychology when I try too hard.
Yeah, John Wooden said, go fast but don't hurry.
Oh, that's really nice.
You know.
Yeah, and that whole peak of the bell curve in sports psychology, that if you don't care, you're not going to do well, but if you try too hard, you're not going to do well. We got to find the peak of that curve, and so it is with time. But quality time. How about an experience right now, an audio journey of how it feels to create for yourself some quality time that you can then give away in a quality time session with your spouse, and still another quality time session with the whole family there and the whole ohana gathered, because you decided it was going to be a priority.
And so the first thing you have to do is take the quality time now or whenever it's next convenient to get into a real comfortable position, someplace you know that you're going to be uninterrupted for a little while, someplace you know you can anticipate, a place where you can close your eyes and find yourself in paradise. So let's begin. Deep breath. It always begins with one of those luscious deep breaths. Once or twice, eyes closed. Release the stress. Release the anxiety. Release the confusion. Feel safe and nice here in paradise.
Take your time.
You have a lot.
Relax. Feel safe. And create and sense within your body a wonderful feeling of letting go. Letting go of muscular tension, letting go of the rat race, letting go of the monkey mind, letting go of the emotional turmoil, and just letting go of the feeling that there's just not enough time. Put it down, let it go.
Because now you have all the time in the world. For a minute, it seems like many. And you have so much in this minute to feel. Within this single coming minute, your mind and body can begin to heal. And you can let go of your fear, and you can get really clear that this is quality time for yourself. And you can focus on prosperity, or focus on happiness, or focus on optimum health. But whatever you do in this place, here with you and your higher self, it's abundantly clear that this is a place, this quality time space, is a place that's devoid of all fear.
As you enjoy the wonderful feeling of peace and relaxation that you're experiencing right now, luxuriating in the timelessness of this moment, consciously recognize that you've allowed yourself this opportunity to experience more fully what it means to be alive. Congratulate yourself. Give yourself a pat on the back and remind yourself it really would be a good idea to be a little more disciplined at scheduling quality time in your life. First of all, and maybe a little surprising, quality time just for you. Not a selfish thing at all, but essential to having something to offer others you care about in your life. Like the oxygen mask on the airplane, make sure yours is in place before you try to help anybody else. Schedule quality time, first of all, just for you.
And then take quality time with one single deep breath. And remember, you always have choices. And as you're sitting there inside of that wonderful breath, listening to the safest of your voices, this moment you take to avoid any mistake, just a deep breath and get real clear that this quality time, this ready aim fire, is preparing you for what's about to be here. So schedule quality time for yourself and take some more whenever you can. Quality time is one single deep breath and letting your mind make a plan. And create quality time for the one that you love and the family that you most adore. It's not about how much quality time. It's not about making a whole lot more. It's just creating the space for this stuff to take place. It's finding where you can schedule it in. It's starting the process. It's beginning the habit. It's letting the whole thing begin.
And consider the wonderful feeling of knowing that you have deliberately and consciously arranged in your schedule quality time for the family to be together and to take turns doing things that each other love to do. It builds a family. However large or small the family or your ohana, this is why we're doing all these other things that you say prevent you from having time to spend with the family, but you're doing all of these things for the family. Something's backwards here. Turn it right side up. Take care of yourself, take care of your primary relationship, and take care of the family by scheduling everything else around it. Work and all of your other commitments. You can do that in a reasonable and appropriate way. It's just remembering to do that, remembering you have choices, remembering to be responsible for your choices and the way in which you prioritize them, remembering that you are not a victim unless you see yourself as a victim. Initiate your life. Life is what you make it, not what's done to you. Much of it is how you look at it and what you do with it, but don't you see that's initiating it? You don't have to react when you can substitute choices, even-tempered, well-reasoned responses for those knee-jerk reactions. That's where it all begins. It all begins with you letting go of whatever benefit you thought you were getting from pretending you were a victim of time, and be the manager of time. Schedule your life around appropriate priorities. Take care of yourself. Take care of your partner. Take care of your family. Schedule that. And remember those moments. You've always got time for one slow, deep breath. You've always got time to tell yourself, I've got time. I can't afford to be that busy. It degrades my performance. Reflect on quality, not just quantity. Time is about quantity, but it does have quality.
So there is no excuse for, I don't have the time, if you convert all the time that you waste. All the time spent rushing and multitasking, all the time you spent wasted in haste. There's always a moment, there's always a minute. In fact, there's always a whole bunch if you choose. Schedule what matters at the top of your calendar. It's a powerful tool for you to use. Schedule in time for yourself, for your loved one, for your family, for your friends. Schedule in time for the people that you love the most. Because if you schedule that time, you begin to create that habit, and that's what your mind wants the most. It wants to know that it's coming. It wants to know that it's regular. It wants to know that it's something it can depend. It wants to know that this is a habit, a regular thing, and that it isn't going to just simply end. It wants to know that this is a ritual that it can add to your life, and it can be part of releasing your tension and strife, and it can help you and your loved one and your family to bond and remember the reasons you've come together. Remember the reasons that you're so fond of each other. Remember the reasons that you're a family, and connect.
Reorient yourself to the sound of our voices, and remember where you are. For in a moment, I'll ask you to open your eyes, wide awake and alert, rested and refreshed, reoriented to the idea that you are not simply effect or victim or target or done to, but one who can be cause in your life, to initiate. For life is the sum of the choices we make. Make good choices, make them consciously, and bring that sense of power, real power, without force or violence of any kind, creative, natural power with you. I am the cause of my life. I initiate my life for the greater good of all concerned. Hold that gently in your palm as you take now a slow, deep breath, filling your lungs, and as you exhale, just as slowly, relax, open your eyes, wide awake, alert, rested and refreshed, back to the room, feeling fine.
Feeling fine and in charge of your time. The fact is that the greatest masters in the world have exactly the same number of hours a day as you do. It's what you do with your time and spending some of them in the quality experience with yourself, with your spouse, and with your loved ones. That's really what the most powerful use of time is.
And we'd like you to take the time every once in a while to show your friends FocusedPassion.com. A great way to do that, actually, to send them an invitation, is simply to find a program that you think one of your friends would really benefit from, something that they're looking for, or something that, a topic that you know they're going to need and really appreciate. And then use the gadget that we've put there for you at FocusedPassion.com. It's right there on your page that says, send one to a friend, or I think it actually says share one with a friend, something like that. But you can't miss it. It's right below the player, and use it. Send a program to somebody you know who's really could benefit from that program. They'll benefit, you'll benefit as a consequence, and that's why Steve and I like to say changing the world begins with you.
Yeah, and it continues with your friends and family. So if you know anybody who has children who go to school, send them the Family Learning Hour. That's the first step. Send every parent you know the Family Learning Hour, because that starts the whole process. We teach about managing yourself. We teach about intimacy. We teach about creating the family connection. It's all there in this program, this 5-part program, the Family Learning Hour.
Thanks a lot for being with us today. I enjoyed the time. I hope it was a quality time for you. And as always, be gentle, love life, and take care of each other. For Steve Snyder, this is Michael Benner. Aloha.